to do now is create a layer of beads on top of my sheer garment, just to give you the effect or practice on how you could make sequins or beading on top of a garment digitally versus doing it by hand. If you're still learning and you want to do it by hand, that's great. You need to know that. But there's also additional ways that you can make your work effective. So once again, this is trial and error. Sometimes the pieces, the layers don't come out exactly how you want it, but I'm just going to give you the basics on how it goes, how to make it work. So I'm still working with the same fashion illustration from the brightness and contrast video. Because this is sheer, I want to make sure that my swatch is opaque. So the first thing you have to do is find the beading or rhinestone swatch that you want to work with. This is the entire swatch that I found online. I like this color because it was close to my peach pink blush sheer fabric, but this is the section that I want to use as the beading. So the first thing that you'll do, you'll choose the section of the fabric that you want to use. You click the marquee tool, select that section, and then you'll hit Command C. Command C means copy. So what I want to do is I want to paste that swatch in this document that I'm working on with Command V as in Victor. So right now my swatch is located inside of the document, and what I want to do now, I need to define this swatch because it's going to come up as a pattern. So I'm just going to click on it, move it around just to make sure that it's selected. And I also need to make it opaque. So before I do that, let me drag it over to C. Okay, so if you notice that it's not opaque, it sits, well, it doesn't have, it has high opacity, which is at 100% opacity now, but we want to bring it low. We want it to be transparent. So you'll notice that you can't see through it as of now. So I'm just going to bring this over, and now, well, actually, let me keep the swatch on top of it so we can see how it'll look once we fill it in. So I'm going to bring the opacity down, and you'll notice that it's a little lighter and we can see through our fabric. Let me try maybe 50% to see what it's going to look like. That's 50%. It's too soft. We'll try 60, maybe 63. I think 63 is okay to work with. You can always look for a better color that's closer to yours, but just to give that beading effect, that's what you want. You can play around with so many different things, and you can also hand draw your an example of it. You can also use the brightness and contrast to try to make the beading and sequins a little bit more vivid. So let's see what that looks like. I don't want to change my color, but I do want to just make the beading a little stronger. So let's see how that looks on top of the fabric. It looks a little stronger, and then I'll bring the opacity down just a little bit. I think I still need to take it back up some. Maybe I'll try 60%, see what happens. Maybe 65%. 65% will do for now, just to give you an idea of how it goes. So yeah, I'm going to bring this swatch back over, and now I'm going to define it so I can save it in my pattern library. So you want to make sure that you click the rectangular marquee tool. It's just like a crop tool. You use that to select your swatch, and make sure that only the swatch is selected, not the background white area, because you'll end up saving that within the pattern as well. So I think this is good. I'm going to hit edit, define pattern, and I'll just call it Best Beading and hit OK. So what I need to do is create another layer and place it on top of her in order to fill the section of the top. So I'm going to go down here at the bottom where it says create new layer. Now I have a new layer. So within my new layer, I'm going to make sure that I deselect this. So hit deselect. Make sure that your layer 2 or your new layer is selected. I'll just call it new layer so that we won't get confused. So the bead swatch is selected. If I hit, well, let me hit that. If I, since this is selected, I'll be working on the bead swatch. If the layer 1 is selected, she'll be chosen, but I want to work on my new layer. So with the new layer, I'm going to take the quick selection tool and I'm going to highlight this area. Make sure that your quick selection plus is selected. So I want to select, I'm sorry guys, I'm missing something. Let's go back to layer 1. Click on layer 1. Now in your layer 1, you want to select this area of her collar. But you see how I took a piece of her collarbone? I don't want her collarbone, so I'm going to hit the minus button, deselect this area, and I'm going to deselect some of this because I want to make sure I keep my micron outline. It's very important to keep that, so I'm going to deselect some of this. I only want the inside of the collar. So let me hit my plus sign again, just to make sure the inside of the collar is selected. Okay, that'll work for now. So now I'm going to go up and hit new layer, and I'm going to fill. So I'll hit edit, fill. Make sure that the contents pattern is selected. Custom pattern, I want to make sure that my new pattern is selected. Best Beading. I'm going to hit OK. And now it's filled, but I believe I need to make it a little bit less opaque. So I'm going to bring, so you'll notice that now the color is a little softer and I can see through the garment. So I'm going to take it back down to maybe 60%, and then I'll hit deselect. So if you look closely now, you can see a little bit of that beading here in the collar, and I'm going to try it one more time in this section. So remember, I have to go back and make sure that she's selected. So I'm going to hit layer 1. I'm going to use my quick selection tool, make sure that my plus sign is selected. I'm going to select the inside of this collar. And I need to bring down that edge because I want my micron to show. I'm going to click the plus quick selection, and you can also change the size of your pixel so that you can get closer on the inside and select the little tiny area. So what I'll do is zoom in by hitting Command plus. And I'll just select the area inside, trying not to cover the micron. And for now, that's okay. So what I need to do is go back to my new layer, select new layer. And with that being said, I can fill my sequins again. So edit, fill. Everything is already pre-selected for me. I'm going to hit OK. And it comes up kind of strong. So let me see if I can change the opacity. I think the opacity should still be fine from the last time. So I'll just hit that 60%. Hit enter. And you'll notice, let me zoom in. Command plus. You'll notice that these are little tiles. So it's this, but repeated as tiles. So I'm going to deselect that. And if you want to get rid of that line, those, the connections, like the seams to connect the sequins, you can actually take the smudge tool and begin to just rub it out. You can rub it in whatever direction. You can click it. That'll work. You can do that. Just rub it in whichever direction you want it to go, just to get rid of that line. Some people like to use the blur tool. You can use that. It just takes, for me, it just takes too long. So I don't use it. And you'll be like, okay, it looks kind of blurry. But remember, you're going to zoom out. This is just really close. So you can see the lines. You can see where it's smeared. But once you zoom out, you can also use the clone tool. The clone is a good tool to work on that as well. But once you zoom out, you won't see the blur, the smear as much. So I'm going to hit Command minus, and there you have it. So that's just a sample. And of course, it's trial and error. You can always go back in and work on the contrast, choose a better color. You can change your textile color, maybe use the, let me click her again. I'm going to use the eyedropper tool, and then I'm going to squeeze some of this pink. And let's see what happens if I take the pink and put it on the inside of this swatch. So I'm going to hit Command plus, scroll over, and I have to find my little paintbrush. So I'm going to try to paint in this section. So you can see the pink coming up a little bit. So you can go in and, add your own little effects if that's not what you like, if it's not the tone that you like. You can always go back in and add. I'm going to zoom in really closely so you can see what I'm doing. Although it's messy, you can clean it up. But I'm just taking the paintbrush, and I use the eyedropper to squeeze some of my pink paint from her blouse, and I'm just painting it here. Let's see if we go over. Look, even if you go over, that looks nice. Let's see what this looks like once we're done. We'll just try it out and see. I'm not doing it to perfection. The sequence now even looks a little stronger. So let's see what happens if we were to use this instead of the other. I'll make the size bigger so that it doesn't take so long to color. Okay, so I'll zoom out. Now I'm going to define this new colored swatch with the pinkness in it. Oh, I made a mistake, so let me deselect that. Let me make sure, okay, so the beaded swatch is selected, and I want to make sure once again that I choose my rectangular marquee tool. And it almost looks like a rose gold. So I'll define this as rose bead. I'll click OK. Then I'm going to scroll over here. So what I'll do is delete this new layer. I'm going to click on here and I'll pull it to the trash. So it's no longer there. I'm going to make sure that I deselect this. I'll create a new layer. New layer. I'm going to scroll back down and select layer 1, which is our girl. Use the quick selection tool. And then I'm going to select this side of her collar. Once again, I'm going to remove this. Okay, that'll work for me. I'll scroll back up to where it says layer 2, which is my new layer. And then I'm going to fill my new layer with our rose swatch. There you have it. But I still need to make it opaque because it's at 100% opacity. So I need to make the opacity a little softer. Much better. So even at 62, that's fine. I'll hit select, deselect, and zoom out. So there you have it. And now that you look at it, it almost looks like an animal print. But that's pretty much how you would create a sequence or a print, or even even like an animal print, whatever effect you're going for. But that's just an example of how you do it. Remember, everything is trial and error. So